Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a discussion over The Legacy of You, one of the newest games by Shem Phillips. I believe he designed this. Yep, Shem Phillips. And this is the solo-only game, where a solo-only campaign legacy, quote-unquote, completely resettable campaign. I have finished the campaign, so, basically it just depends on, how well you do. It's going to be a minimum of 7 games, because if you completely lose out or you completely win out, that will be at least 7 games, but then you might win some, you might lose some, and go back and forth. Whew, man, okay. Alright. This is a very weird review, because I binged this campaign. I played it. I did one practice game just to figure out how things work. I did the very first one and kind of reset it real quick and then started over, and then basically played 7 games in a row. It is. I can tell that this is a good game, but this is a game I would never want to play again. And I think probably binging it is what did it in for me, because after a few games it became extremely tedious and frustrating. Although the bones of a game, the bones and the way it works and the mechanics and all that are very solid, it's probably meant to be played every now and then, just because it would be less frustrating that way. So I'm not going to say that there's a meta to this game. I think there are a few things and a few different strategies you can do. But for me, what almost guaranteed a victory, every single victory I had, I was kind of in based off the same strategy. And what I did was, there are buildings you can build, the purple buildings, that basically turn all workers as equal. They become interchangeable, and this is almost key to do. So the cards that I would get and that I would slot underneath, because whenever you build the villages or the huts, that allows you to slot more, I would almost always go for the ones that gave me the white workers, the laborers. And then I would go for the purple buildings, because those turned whites into whatever I needed at the time. Whites could be used as yellows, yellows could be used as whites, and then I would just slowly start getting those to where by the end of a game, I would have all 4 of those purple buildings out, so that turned every meeple that I had into whatever I wanted it to be. So it just kind of became, oh, all right. And then at that point, you're also generating a bunch of the conch. I think that's what not conch, cowrie. The cowrie shells, which are kind of a resource you can use to trade. So you trade those to get provisions. You need provisions to go out and fight barbarians, because barbarians ramp up extremely quickly. But if they're not a problem, if you can use every worker as whatever you need it to be. So, and you also get a bunch of those cowrie shells, because whenever you do the harvest step, you gain you gain at least 1 cowrie and then an extra one for each of those purple buildings you have. So during each harvest, by, I don't know, the latter half of the game, you're gaining 5 of those, as well as just whatever else you might be getting from your cards. So it became kind of okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And every single victory I had was basically determined by that. And that would be fine. That would feel really good if I did that one game and then, played another game a week later and maybe did it again and pulled it through. But all that is to say is this game is not easy in any way. This game is so difficult, but at the same time, I don't really feel like it's difficult through... It feels random. Everything just kind of feels a little bit random. Because you have a deck. You start the game with a deck of 10 cards. And then during the harvest step, you draw 4 of those. And your cards have... they're multi-use, which I think is really good. I like it. They have like a brown like section and then a red section and then like some white section that only comes in. There might be some slight spoilers. I'll try not to spoil anything. But the white section comes in later. And then they have a bottom section for you to get like a permanent harvest ability. The brown section is if you choose to discard your card, that's what you get out of the brown. If you choose to completely get rid of it, you get the brown and the red, but you're choosing to get rid of it. And and then it's not even like you have the same deck from game to game. What you do is you shuffle all the townsfolk cards, you shuffle those, and then you draw 10. Or you don't really, you draw 10. You do draw 10, but you make that 10 your starting deck. And I find that completely RNG. Like, how well your game is going to be, I feel like is highly deterministic based off of the 10 cards you start with. Like, there was a time in one of the games, and again, I'm not going to spoil anything, where a certain section was supposed to be more difficult, but due to my starting hand, I was able to actually get rid of it completely. And I was like, well, I don't feel like I really earned that. It just happened to be that my opening hand was just really good. And okay, I guess I'll deal with that situation. But then games that were extremely difficult were, oh, I really need meeples. Oh, look at that. Not getting any meeple cards. They're all provisions. Cool. Because the way that I hate how the barbarians work. So you have a deck of barbarians, and whenever you start the game with one barbarian out, and over the course of the game, you have a icon that tells you how many barbarians are getting added to the row. Not how many need to be in the row, how many are getting added. So if you don't deal with like one barbarian, you're adding in another one. Instead of being like, oh, I didn't deal with that one, he's still there. So then it becomes 2 barbarians. And if you can't deal with that one through sheer randomness, then it's going to snowball into a disastrous effect. Because some of these are just like, I'm going to try and look at the starting ones. Like, some of these are just, you need 2 red and a blue. And if you can't deal with him, you can bribe him. So it's either you have to destroy a card from the top of your deck. And that's one way you can lose, is if you cannot destroy a card, that's one way you lose. Or you turn into cowrie shells. Now, sometimes, some of the strategies, you look at the barbarians, and you're like, well, I don't have 3 provisions, or I don't have 2 provisions, but I can get resources that let me bribe. And so that's kind of what you do sometimes, is if you just can't get the meeples to do that. But that becomes extremely annoying when when one barbarian turns into 2, and then 2 turns into 4, and then you're just like, then you have less townsfolk to hire to pull into your deck, and you're almost as guaranteed to lose. There's a lot of this game that feels like it's almost wanting you to lose. I'm not saying that you can't win out. I'm just saying that if everything I've seen, especially, has your first game is going to be extreme. Like, I remember looking up literally a post asking how are you winning your first game, and almost everyone was saying they either lost it or they barely won. And I mean, yeah, that's going to kind of figure out how this game works, but I feel like almost every game worked the same way. But man, those barbarians just get extremely, extremely rough. Eventually, you kind of learn, because what's it called? The ditch. It's not a ditch. You're trying to build a canal. You're trying to build out the canal. Eventually, you learn that, okay, the 2nd, 4th, and 6th spot are going to make you draw an additional barbarian, so you kind of get your engine set up to be able to deal with that. And, I mean, again, that's kind of why you kind of figure out the puzzle of the game. So by your, third, fourth, fifth game, you're like, yeah, okay, I know exactly what those benefits are. That's what I'm going to go for. I know what benefits the huts give me underneath, so that's what I'm going to go for. And you kind of just do the same thing over and over and over. And then you're done. So, like I said, this game is good. Like, it has some elements of, like, Hadrian's Wall. If you haven't played that, I highly recommend it. But Hadrian's Wall was kind of like, you are utilizing you're turning this meeple into this meeple, which it gets you those, and you're using those to get these resources. And you do that here. And it could just be, again, that I binged this game to play out the campaign. It just got pretty tiresome pretty quickly. And some of those barbarians, like, because when you win, you get, obviously, a story, and I haven't talked about the story yet, but I will get to that. Basically, when you win, you get nothing for it. It just makes the game harder. So it kind of is like, hey, I want you to lose. Like, you should lose. Like, we're basically gonna add in, mechanics that guarantee you to lose. And I find that kind of cheap. It's like, well, that wasn't really creative. I didn't feel that it was creative. I felt like you just made asshole barbarian cards that are just kind of like super annoying to deal with. And a slight spoiler here. It's early on, but one of the first things that gets added if you win are like barbarians that are decked out in armor, and they do give some story elements and theme of why things are happening, so that does help. But a lot of the barbarians, if not almost all of them, require 3 meeples to deal with, various colors. These meeples require 4, and 4 meeples is a lot, and because everything's just shuffled into the barbarian deck, there's no way of controlling what comes out. So I had a game where the very first card that came out was a 4 meeple barbarian, and the one I'm looking at specifically requires 2 red and 2 blue. Well, you can't really do a whole lot like that with that in the very beginning. So he requires you to either discard the top card of, exhaust the top card of your ready deck, your draw pile, or get rid of a yellow meeple. And if you have no way of generating yellow meeples, then your deck is getting thinned out, and again, that's one way you can lose. And if you're not drawing any cards that give you 2 red and 2 blue, while you also need 3 provisions to go out and fight them, that's basically, you kind of see that and you're like, nope, it's a wash, and then you kind of just redo it. And I don't find that fun. I've had some games like that. Shadowrun Crossfire did shit like that, where you could set up the entire game and look and be like, we lost. And you kind of have that here. It helps, of course, that it's solo, so you are playing by yourself, and you can be like, that wasn't the card that was drawn first. But do you really want to do that? Like, do you really want to set it up and just be like, I mean, you could, if that was the only thing that kind of messed it up, you could just be like, whatever, and then just put it away and shuffle it into the deck and then draw one that is, I mean, yeah, that's another one that's like, well, gonna lose there, because some of these barbarians get insane. And the barbarians are part of the theme, and I'm not upset that there's a variety of barbarians. It's just that it's completely random on what's coming out. The one I happen to just look at would be basically, it'd be almost game ending if that came out super early before you even have a chance to draw any cards that could be good. Because theoretically, you could put a barbarian out, or even have a few barbarians come out. It could be 2 4s, and you're only drawing your opening hand was provisions, because this game doesn't reward you a lot. Like, it does reward you, and it was nice when it happened, but most of the time it was just beating you down over and over and over. A lot of the story cards, like story cards come from the huts and then the canal cards. It just felt demoralizing to get them. Like, it would be like, I guess some slight story spoilers, but there'd be one where it's like, oh yeah, finally, who trudged through that, got that canal section built, awesome, I feel really good, and now let me read my story. Oh, it added a barbarian to the row. Cool. Did I get any cool powers? Did I get, and nope, that was my reward, was being punished with potentially losing, because there's no, like, half wins. Like, you either win or you lose. So when you're trying to progress the game and finally eke out a win, and you have to read a story section, you're almost not excited to read the story. You're like, oh god, what's it gonna be? Oh, reading that, and great. Alright, well, I lost. And then you have to start all over. Now, the lose cards, like, there's two, like I said, there's three ways you can lose. If you every time you have to reshuffle your ready pile, you have to move the flood token over. If it ever lands on the spot that your barge is at, you lose. The flood has, like, caught up to you. That's one way you can lose. Like I said, if you cannot destroy a card, that's there. And if 7 barbarians ever are out at the top, that's how you lose. But whenever you draw the defeat card, and then whichever way you lost, it's either by flood or it's by barbarians or your deck, you read a story section, and then it gives, like, that's how you get benefits. I don't know. I just kind of find that a little lame. Like, it is nice that it's like, hey, you lost, here's rewards. It doesn't, kick you while you're down, but it almost feels like it wants you to win, lose, like, alternate between the two. Or if you are going to win multiple games in a row, it has to be by pure randomness versus anything that you did strategically. Yeah, the barbarians coming out, I absolutely hated. It became very, very annoying. And another thing that because I was kind of looking up some strategies whenever I got my ass handed to me my first couple games. Basically, you want to make your deck as fat as possible. Like, you start out with 10 cards. Luckily, the far left card is always free, and it is easy to get provisions, but you need provisions to go get more cards. You also need provisions to deal with barbarians. You do have a kind of a lot to manage. It's not a difficult game in terms of understanding. It is relatively straightforward, which is good. But there's, like, any time that you're able to draw more cards or put more cards into your deck, you should. Just because what I was doing, which, I mean, I wouldn't say is necessarily fun, but is if your deck gets really fat and you're able to deal with barbarians, a lot of my games were just like, oh yeah, I have all these meeples. They're all interchangeable, so essentially they're just a pool of whatever I want them to be. If you're able to do that, and I was generating a bunch of cavalry, then your hand of 4 cards, like, if you have a deck of 15 cards, you can just, like, they become nothing. Like, I could turn in this card for a black and be like, you know what, I'll exhaust that. That's more, that's more token, or that's more meeples. That's 2 black, and then, oh, this one's a white and a yellow. Yep, white and yellow, just add that. Oh, this one's 3 provisions. Yeah, I'll grab the 3 provisions. And this one's a white and another provision. So now I have this pool of stuff, and I have all the provisions that's allowed to me, as well as all the cavalry, and yep, I'm going to build out that last section of the canal. Now, you don't automatically win when you do that. You have to survive the round, but because there's only 4, it only ever adds 4. There needs to be 7 barbarians up at the top. That's how you lose. So a lot of my games that I won were based off of, I'm like, okay, there's 4 barbarians out. I can deal with 2 of them. So that means 2 will stay, 4 will get added, that's 6, and I win. Like, now you got to be careful about doing that. You don't want to thin yourself out too much, because some of the penalties, if you don't have their bribe cost, or, the inability to bribe, then you might be like, oh, I can't draw, or whatever. Even though you actually wouldn't have to draw because the harvest is at the beginning of the next round. So you just basically have to survive their attack, and then you win. So again, there are different kind of strategies, but if you play this game multiple times in a row, you kind of go through the motions and find out what works for you. And there were times where I did have to alternate like some strategy or what I had to do, but not much. Like, it's still, I think there was one game I did my all white and then make all the meeples universal, and then like I tried doing something different the next game and that was not working, so then I just reverted back to what was working and that continued to work. So that's kind of, and like I said, the mechanics here are good. I feel like they're good for like one game a week or something. So now, let's go to the story. And it's really interesting that this game came out, because another game came out that was, I guess it wasn't a standalone game, but an expansion came out called Wrath of the Lighthouse for Empires of the North. That's also a solo-only, story-driven game. I'm gonna go ahead and say this is how you do it. This is how you do a solo-only, story-driven campaign, because Wrath of the Lighthouse, I think, is not done that well. This is very clean. So you don't even read through this at the beginning. There's no like story setup. Although I kind of wish there was. Like, that'd be nice if there was a little story setup. But you're jumping into the storybook very quickly. Almost every card that you start with has a story section to it. And then you just need to read the introduction to kind of understand why you're doing what you're doing. The story sections, there's a lot here. They even say at the back of the rulebook, by the end of a campaign, you're going to see 40 to 60% of it. So you're gonna see almost everything in one playthrough. But so I think there's about 2 campaigns worth in here, and I think that's also why they made it the way they did, because when you win, lose back and forth, you aren't seeing as much. You definitely see a lot more if you win a lot of games in a row, or you do almost everything. Like, there's some extra stuff that comes in, obviously, through a campaign game, that some of it you don't have to do, others you do. But the writing, now here's what I did also. Because I wasn't recording this, I just went on like Spotify and just looked up traditional Chinese music, and I listened to that, and that helped a lot. The writing here, it's not bad, and I wouldn't even really say it's amateurish. I'd say the writing's pretty good. Like, you follow, forgive me if you follow, well, it's the legacy of Yu. I do not know his last name, though. Yu, that's his name, Y-U. You follow, it's from his perspective, and the trials and tribulations that he goes through while doing this massive, what they call the great work for the Emperor, while also defending themselves from barbarians. And as you're doing certain actions and, winning and losing, you do, you go through his perspective of that. It's not, like, gory or anything. There are some serious moments, and I'd say the writing was probably amplified from the music that I was listening to. But it's definitely, it's not bad, and I think it handled adding extra stuff very well. Like, and then the way certain things will happen. Now, there's only a certain number of victory cards, and the only rule about that is there's a gold victory card, and that's always on the bottom. So the rest of the victory cards are just shuffled and put on top. So certain things might happen at different points in time, which could give you a little bit of a different style of campaign. But if if you go through it, you will see it also. It'll be kind of a, when is this going to happen versus if it happens. But yeah, the story, I mean, like I said, I didn't always want to... I wanted to go into it for the reading part, like the story portion, but I hated what was usually coming after that, because it was very rarely good. But like I said, whenever you're reading the story stuff and it is good, you're like, oh, yay, yeah, that's nice. But I'd say as an overall, like, story-driven, campaign thing, it's pretty good. I was surprised because obviously Garphill Games and Shem Phillips don't do stories in their games, so this was surprisingly well done. The storybook was written by Benedict Hewitson, so he did a pretty good job. And I will also say I love this artwork. I really, really like it. As if you've watched my channel for a long time, you know I'm not a huge fan of the Miko. That's obviously art subjective. I do not like the Miko's artwork. I don't like his people, sorry. I love his scenery. Like, I love the way he does landscapes and stuff like that. I think that's really good. But his people just are the most grotesque things I've ever seen drawn. But I guess Sam Phillips, which I would have to guess is his brother, I really enjoy the style that they did for this game. Yeah, and it's completely resettable. So, like, whenever you're done, it's very, very easy to reset. Because there's just a deck of story cards and they're numbered 1 through 69. So you just look for those, put those up, and then everything else is just really organized in this box. So, it's compact. It plays, like I said, very clean. It's just, I had main issues with it playing it multiple times in a row, to where I kind of felt like I figured it out, and then I just went with that, and then anything else that kind of happened, it was just more annoying. Like, it wasn't, whenever I was getting new stuff added or new cards were coming out, I wasn't like, how am I going to deal with this puzzle? It was more just, oh, yay. Because here's the thing, there are sometimes whenever you get really good cards in your deck, and you clean up a canal, and a lot of the canal cards, like some of the beginning ones, will just be like, oh yeah, you use, you have to spend these workers and these cowrie shells, and then you get a wood, and you have to destroy 2 of your cards. It's like, what? I thought that was supposed to be a good thing. I thought that's what my entire job here was to do. Yeah, it is. It is. You're punished for it, though. Like, you've cleaned it out, and because the damage comes from the top of your deck, you're kind of like, well, alright, here are the next 2 cards, and those are my 2 best cards. Okay. Like, you can get stuff that gives you multiple resources, and you need brick or wood to build buildings. So if, like, the top of your deck is, something that, or you really need provisions, or you need wood, and the top 2 cards that are discarded are your only wood generators, well, sorry, they're gone. I mean, theoretically, they're not gone. Like, if you run out of cards, you just shuffle the discard pile and put them back. But you're probably not gonna make it that far. And that's the thing. That's what really irks me about this game is it's random in that sense. And so you're random from your deck. You're random from the cards that are available. You're random from the barbarians coming out. You're random from the cards that are being, damaged. And so you lose a lot of the games due to randomness. Or you win some of the games due to randomness. I don't know. I don't know. It's, am I glad I finished it? Probably more in the sense that I'm glad I'm done. Versus, like, that I'm like, yeah, I saw it through. I don't know. Maybe just don't binge games. Because, yeah, I don't know. But isn't that also a detriment? If you're, like, incentivized to not keep playing because it might just like not be that good if you play multiple games in a row. Normally you want to play multiple games like a game in a row, and like it's not bad. Like I said, it's very streamlined. You just kind of you're there for the story. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other like positives, but I can't really. Like, it was mainly the story. The first couple games were really solid whenever you start figuring it out, but then it almost seems like once you figure it out, it either just becomes tedious or frustrating. At least for me. That's how I was feeling. That by the time I was gearing up to be done, I was like, all right, hopefully just one more. But I will say the conclusion is satisfying. Like the writing portion of the conclude. Like maybe their intention was to make it brutally hard. So if you come out on the other side as a victor, then you feel like you feels in the story, and so. And I'd say that they succeeded in that. Like I enjoyed following his journey. I think this is a game definitely worth checking out if you're a solo gamer, and you like his games. This is definitely one to check out, but I would highly recommend that you do not binge it. Like that would be my advice. Is like, oh, should I get it? It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's clean. It's a solid story. And it adds enough each game that it doesn't, like, that stuff it doesn't get, like, stale, but just don't play it over and over and over to try and finish the campaign. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I am going to give it, based off my experience, I'm going to give Legacy of You I'm torn between a 6 and a 7. I do think it is a slightly above average game. I am going to give this the benefit of the doubt and say 7. I think that if I did not play this as quickly as I did, I wouldn't have been as frustrated by what was going on in the RNG, because it wouldn't have been as apparent to me. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a 7. I think this is I think it's a good game. Now, it has elements, this could have been an 8 or a 9, but it's too random. But it is also very streamlined whenever you're playing solo. Like, I've played Frostpunk solo, and I'm like, oh my god. But here, you just have the stuff right next to you, and you're just in and out, just getting it done. Resetting a game is very quick. And it's also, the games aren't long. It says 60 minutes. That's max, I think. Like, if you're playing a game, obviously, because you might just lose right out the gate. But if you're actually getting into an actual game, 60 minutes is max. If I was going based off my experience of the multiple games that I did, it would be a 6. But also at the same time, like, the frustration that didn't, like, stay. Like, I'm not still feeling it. It was just more of kind of like, okay, that was that, and then you just reset it and keep going. So yeah, I'm gonna give Legacy of You a 7. But again, that's a weird ranking because I will never play this again. Like, I was able to get the victory, so I read that, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to play it again and potentially read this, kind of the same story over and over. I don't need to read the defeat cards. So it is kind of like, once you get the victory, you're done. They do have promos that you can get. It says provides 3 ways to increase the difficulty for Legacy of You. That's bonkers to me. I guess give it some variety. It would be neat if, like, you could just play this without having to do the campaign. like, I guess theoretically you can just play the first game, but it would have been cool as, like, if they had an after campaign thing to where you can just add certain stuff to, like, a module kind of thing, like, oh, hey, I'm done with the game, but I don't want to do the campaign again, so I'll just, I just want to play it. But they don't have any of that, to my knowledge. So the promo cards just kind of are added throughout the campaign. So that'd be something that'd be nice. Like, there are some legacy games that do that, where it's like, oh, you're done? Okay, well, now here's how the game can be played after you're done with the campaign. But this doesn't have that. And I think this would be a solid one to just have as a one-off of things you can just be like, okay, what do you want to add? Do you want to add this, like kind of a module thing of what the campaign does add? So you can just kind of do your efficiency puzzle. And that really is what this kind of game is. If your deck is working, well, and the barbarian deck isn't being too rough, it is an efficiency puzzle, which, as if you watch a lot of my Euro discussions, the efficiency games aren't something that I particularly enjoy, because I feel like once you figured it out, then you're done. It doesn't allow a lot of variety. So the Euro games I enjoy are the ones with a bunch of variety to them. And this game doesn't have that. Like I said, it's good. It's a good game, but understand that you might just straight up lose through no fault of your own, especially in your first game. Yeah, so I think that's it from me. So 7 out of 10, Legacy of You. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.